Hi Elisheva. You started working with Vizoo technology. Can you tell us a little bit what the background was? Why did you start working together with us?
Well, this is quite a while ago. It seems like in a different life. There was COVID in between, right? So it started in January 2020 when I started to brainstorm with Rosa Kramer, founder of Hypercurve Studio. We started to brainstorm about a digital journey, or kind of like how we could collaborate together. She just founded her company, her 3D studio, and it was clear that we wanted to do something together. And then next step was that we somehow had to digitize our fabrics, because we wanted to have a nice quality, we wanted to have a good standard. And so this is why at that moment I called you. Maybe you still remember the first call when we started chatting.
Feels like a decade ago.
Yes, yeah. It does, right? Then we had this first chat, right? And then this is actually how it started. And in the beginning it was, that was before COVID, so it was still really, it was actually like talking about something that was quite strange to the world as well, to our world as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Still is, I would say, you're still one of the pioneers in like your field in regards to digitization. So Elisheva, that the whole project for digitization was mainly started by you in Forster Rohner. Can you elaborate a little bit how the reaction internally was, like by the people who actually use the technology, but also by the management?
Well, first of all, I started really together with Rosa, right? It was brainstorming. So it was
who's Rosa?
Rosa Kramer, the founder of Hypercurve Studio, and that was like we two brainstorming, right? And we were in our bubble and looking into things. And then when we started internally, it was actually really interesting, because I first started to talk about it with my design team, and they were really interested. So it was really cool. We actually started in the design team. At that time it was possible because we were in lockdown. So it was really spring 20, so the market was bit more quiet, so we had time actually to put our resources into trying something new. Later on, of course, we had to kind of like create like a department for it, because it's a topic which also requires some specific know-how. So it's not something, we grew into it, but you also need a lot of know-how, which is really specific for 3D in order to be able to deliver what is needed. So now we have a small team which is dedicated to this digital topic internally. From a management side, I would say this is really something that is really nice, was a really nice experience as well here, in order to see that it was very soon or very fast it became a strategic project, that we really put resources on this topic in order to really be able to do the next steps which are needed to be ahead on this topic.
Which makes sense, because I think you have to commit also to that topic if you just run it very low.
And we always said if because we really believe in it, and for me it's a huge passion, this topic. So we said we don't want to be someone who is, or a company that is being pushed or a follower. We really want to be a front runner on this topic.
And you are right now. You're very innovative in that field.
Yeah.
So 3D, to really reap the benefits of the technology, it's a very, in terms of cost and time and also sustainability, like you mentioned, it's a very collaborative effort, right? It needs both your end to start the digitization journey, but it also needs the brand side, your customers, to on the one hand accept it already and work with that, because if they, for example, just still only accept physical sample, it's a very one-sided relationship, and the whole benefit of 3D can only be really generated if like both sides work together. So when you started that journey, how did brands accept it, or how did they react?
This is a good question. Actually, I mean, we had no clue what would happen, right? Because I spoke to very, very few before the pandemic, and it was like 50-50, I would say, like interested, not really. And then when COVID hit, it became something different, right? Yeah. And then we actually, I think it was in summer 20, when we really started to talk to our clients about this new strategy and this vision, that we saw a few were really, really enthusiastic. And those who didn't kind of like thought about it before, they were very interested. So we had really nice exchanges, really nice discussions, and also nice projects with some brands. I would say nowadays, most of our clients, they see the benefit, what they have out of if we deliver like both routes. The physical, of course, this will always stay because you have to touch it, especially lingerie. It's a product which you have to touch because you wear it on your skin, right? But it helps to have both options. Yeah.
So basically, when you approached brands with the topic of 3D and they starting accepting that, did you see any difference, any regional difference? Like, for example, was Asia more eager or less eager than Europe to accept the digital technology?
It's hard to say. I would say there was, of course, a difference because it also came down to people in a certain company, right? Leadership, or whether someone really picked it up and was pushing for it. Because at that time in those companies, there was no one pushing such a project, right? But what we could say maybe is that, I mean, there was, for example, Chantel from France, where we had, like in the very beginning, we had a really nice range, Fleur, which is now on the market, which we developed digital in the very beginning. And what we also felt is that maybe rather, let's say, the States, that they were in the beginning, they were like more on the topic, but I would say now it's became quite equal on the different regions.
Fantastic. Yeah. I have to mention also, because we already work with a lot of brands internationally also, and sometimes we get the question from suppliers, they don't even know like if their customers are working digitally, and then they mention customers like PVH and Hugo Boss and Adidas and Nike have been like working digitally for ages already. So often it's also just like an issue of like addressing the correct person in that company, because somebody from sourcing might not necessarily know that the brands themselves are already using 3D internally and might get a benefit from suppliers providing them digital files. 3D implementation, what are the biggest benefits for you, for Forster Rohner?
I think it's one of the biggest benefits is that we're becoming more efficient, especially in the development process. That means we can deliver faster, and of course, connected to this, it cuts down cost, because we have to deliver less physical samples if we do a few rounds only in digital. And there is another topic on this thematic which is very dear to me, which is also, if you look into the development process of our industry, that it becomes way more sustainable. If we produce less sampling material in the development process, that means that we also somehow produce less waste in the development process. So I call this sometimes, or also like sustainable tech. So I think this is also a very important topic of this digitalization of this industry, which we really have to keep in mind. It's somehow a bit our homework that we have to do as an industry.
Perfect. Would you say cost and time saving is like a side effect of like implementing this sustainability technology, or would you say the technology is primarily implemented because it saves cost and time, and like a side effect of that is being sustainable? Like, can you sort of
from
like,
my very
wait?
personal perspective, for me, it was just when I got in touch with it first, I was so curious about it. I became so passionate about the topic. So it was not either or. It was really in parallel this both things. But I think we look into. I think it also proves the concept. Let's say like this, because I think it's very important if we go for sustainable solutions. It doesn't work if costs are increasing tremendously.
Yeah.
So this is why it's a win-win. It helps on the cost side, on the efficiency side, but also it becomes more sustainable. And of course we have to look into recycled materials. We have to look into organic materials. But still, this doesn't actually really reduce the amount of waste that we produce.
So you basically need that balance
Yes.
in order for the whole technology to make sense.
Yeah.
So you're already pretty far in your processes and how you collaborate with your clients. Are there still any problems you see that you have to overcome?
I wouldn't say problems. I would rather call them challenges.
Perfect.
Of course, there are challenges, especially because everything is new.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a constant challenge because it's not that we have a workflow that is just there existing and exists for 10, 15 years or even longer, right? So we have a lot of challenges, but I think this is something you have to love.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise you wouldn't go on such a journey, right? So this is kind of like how we approach it. On the other hand, what I see as a really big topic is colors.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it is a very important topic in the industry. And how do we get accuracy? How do we also provide files to our clients that they get it accurate?
Yeah.
How do we deal with hardware in order, or even profiles of colors? So this is, for me, this is something that is a big, let's call it a big topic, or a big challenge that I'm quite sure we have to somehow try to find solutions in the next years.
No, absolutely. It's a very complex topic,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we have to find a way to still manage it somehow, so that we don't get like inaccuracies along the process.
Mm-hmm.
Now we suddenly have this like traditional textile knowledge suddenly clashing with digitization and 3D. It must be very challenging finding people to work on that. Can you elaborate how you like either educate your existing colleagues, or how do you find like new people who have suddenly these cross-functional competences?
Oh, this is a good question. I mean, I think in the existing team, again, I was really lucky because they just loved the topic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say they immediately understood the benefit of it, and they immediately understood what they get and how it improves their situation with dealing with our product, right? So this is why there was like no question. That was really nice to see. And they're also supporting. I mean, they're supporting from a sales side, that they're giving feedback, a design side. So this is like, I'm really lucky on this end. Finding people is another topic, of course. It's not easy because, especially, I mean, textile people are rare, and then combine it with the digital background, it's even trickier to find people. Well, we had to really look into the world.
Yeah.
We're now quite international. We have even someone from the States in the team.
Nice.
Yes, so it's but it's nice because it shows, it gives kind of like a new impact into the team.
So if anybody looking for a job happens to watch our discussion, what we will say is the most important attribute they need to bring in order to like convince you to be able to work for Forster Rohner?
You mean in the digital field or?
No, general, like
general.
what personality?
I would say
type
just
it in.
passion for what they do.
Perfect.
Be authentic and passionate about what
Yeah.
you do, and then this is the base.
Fantastic. So now that all the processes are in place, like what are the next steps? What is the plan for the next few years?
Good question. I mean, of course, I can't share
Of course.
the details where we are now, what we're planning to do, but we're at the moment looking into a roadmap. We're now looking into what we could do as a next step. But what I feel is really interesting to see is that I felt like if you look 3 years back, everything was like new in this industry, was something was a bit hidden, right? And now I feel like there was this first step which had been done, and it kind of like got something that proved.
Yeah.
It proved this concept.
So would you say 3D is established finally in the industry? It's not going away anymore?
I don't know whether it's established yet, but I don't think it will go away.
Perfect.